Welcome to Midlife and Glowing, where we're all about glowing through midlife with more energy, confidence, and joy.
We're sisters Alicia
and Nicole, wellness lovers, beauty enthusiasts, and your new midlife hype squad.
Here we talk about the real stuff: wellness rituals, hormone health, self-care, beauty, style, and everything that helps you feel like yourself again.
Because midlife doesn't have to be a downward spiral. It could be your best era yet. Let's glow through it together. Last week, we talked about how what you eat might need to shift in midlife. And this week, we're diving into why the way you move your body might need to shift too.
Why is it that women in perimenopause start to gain weight, even if they're working out like they usually do and eating the same way they usually do? Why is it that we start to notice weight gain at that time?
So during midlife, our hormones start changing, which impacts your body's metabolism. So your estrogen lowers, which causes more insulin resistance. You aren't using your blood glucose as effectively, and you end up storing more of it as fat. More insulin resistance also means insulin levels are generally higher, which also increases inflammation in the body, which can just compound these factors. And then this time in our life, we are also more sensitive to stress, which means we are often producing too much cortisol. Cortisol is your stress hormone, and high levels of cortisol in combination with high levels of insulin makes it really easy to gain weight and really difficult to lose weight. We also tend to lose muscle mass as we age. So healthy muscle mass helps us utilize glucose more effectively, preventing the blood glucose spikes and crashes that contribute to weight gain and a slower metabolism, and the need to convert as much glucose to fat. So when we lose muscle mass, we lose more blood sugar regulating capability. And the other factor is that women tend to focus their efforts on cardiovascular exercise, like running, for example.
Yep.
But long bouts of steady state cardio actually are associated with chronically high levels of cortisol. So it can end up compounding that higher cortisol from the sensitivity to stress that we often experience in perimenopause. So it's really kind of setting the stage for weight gain and more difficulty in losing weight.
Yeah, I know when I first started back up with a workout regimen, my first thought was, okay, running. That was my only option in my mind is, okay, I got to start running.
Yeah.
And, I noticed no change in my body composition. I was doing all the things,
Right.
And I didn't notice any change. And, I'm like, well, maybe I need to run more. So maybe another mile or something.
Yeah.
And still no change. And then when I started to see change is when I was doing my body pump classes. So, and that's something I actually enjoyed more. So now I only run if I'm being chased.
That's great. Likewise. I also am not a big fan of running, but, I know
and it's also so hard on my calves would hurt, my shins would hurt, my knees would hurt. It just seems like it's such a hard exercise on your body.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you don't get that payoff. It's like, why am I doing this?
Right. And part of that is the high cortisol leading to an increase in inflammation too. So that might be why it feels even harder on your body.
I'd much prefer a walk.
Yeah. Oh, likewise.
Than the running. That's not as hard. And honestly, it's just like that brings the stress down.
But I think a lot of women are in that boat. They want to get into an exercise regimen, and their first thought is cardio exercises, something like running, because that's something that they're comfortable with. I wonder if the reason for that is that's just maybe the unknown. They just don't know how to lift weights. It maybe seems intimidating. I'm not sure, but we'll talk.
With running, you don't need equipment.
Right.
It's easy. I mean, everybody can do it. I hear I run funny, but I can still do it. So I choose not to.
Yeah. I also had a menopause patient that was training for a marathon, and she was so surprised at the fact that she was training for a marathon and running more than she ever had in her life. And she was actually gaining weight. She was not losing weight. She was just completely shocked by this. And when she shifted her exercise routine to doing more HIIT training, she saw a big difference and noticed the weight change that she was looking for. So we'll talk a little bit more about what kinds of changes will be helpful, but moderate intensity exercise which may have worked for women in their younger years, doesn't provide the hormone triggers that lead to the changes that we're looking for at this age. Healthy weight management, healthy muscle mass, and healthy bone density are what we're looking for here. And unfortunately, that steady state, moderate intensity, long bouts of cardio just doesn't give us those results.
Mm-hmm.
If you're someone that absolutely loves to run, I also want to say that I'm not saying don't run. There just may be other things that you will want to incorporate or consider when it comes to your overall health goals.
So if the long cardio sessions, the running sessions aren't the best at this stage in our lives, what types of exercise should we be doing to support our hormones and metabolism at this stage?
Yeah. So we want to first think about what our main priorities are for exercise at this age, right? One is to improve and maintain healthy muscle mass and strength so that we can maintain our independence well into our 80s and 90s. I think when we get to this age, we start thinking about that, right? Or we need to start thinking about that. Like, how can I move my body and support my body in a way that's going to help me maintain that health span, not just lifespan, right? So we probably all know someone that's older that doesn't move around so well. And, if that isn't motivation to take action to move in the best way possible now or support your health as much as possible now so that you can move better and be capable and independent when we are older.
Mm-hmm. In fact, when I'm working out in the living room and the kids come in, they want to watch TV or they want to, just hang out in there, and I'm working out and taking up space in there, and they're like, they want to get in there, but also don't want to be in there when I'm working out. So I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm doing you a favor as well as doing a favor for my health in that if I'm taking care of myself right now, you shouldn't have to take care of me as much when I get older.
Right.
So you're welcome.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
I love that.
And not only that, it's also teaching them good habits and the importance of taking care of yourself and making your health and wellness a priority.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so important and so great for kids to see, to know what it looks like to prioritize your health, because not everybody has that example. So that's awesome. The other thing that we want to be thinking about is what type of exercise will help increase bone density, because during perimenopause, we have to start thinking about our bone density because as estrogen drops, bone density decreases. So we have to start thinking about those things. There are things like rebounders, but strength training, weightlifting is extremely helpful for increasing bone density.
Yeah, and I understand that vibration plates and PEMF mats are also good for strengthening bones and for bone density.
Yeah, the vibration plates give a little bit of stress to the tissues, basically. And the way that strength training works too to increase bone density is it's creating a little bit of stress where the muscles attach to the bone. And the stress that it creates sends a signal to your body telling your body, ooh, we need to increase bone density here to make this stronger. PEMF therapy works a little bit differently. PEMF therapy is basically making all of your cells work more efficiently, including osteoblast cells, which produce bone. They're the cells that make bone. So it's pretty interesting, but yes, both of those things can also be helpful. You can stand on vibration plates and do, various exercises. You can just stand there. PEMF therapy is a passive therapy. So that's something that you can just lay on and you're doing really your overall health a major service, including supporting your bone density too. Oh, and I want to just point this out because a lot of women, go into perimenopause or menopause and they're told that they have osteopenia, which is a decrease in bone density, or osteoporosis, and they think that their only option is medication. But lifestyle is a really effective way to support your bone density. So you can just working out in a specific way is a really great alternative to medications. In fact, after 5 to 6 years on Fosamax,
why would you take that?
The most commonly prescribed medication for osteoporosis is Fosamax. But after 5 to 6 years on Fosamax, your risk for certain types of fractures actually increases. So I think it's important to know these things and know that there are things that you can be doing from a lifestyle standpoint to support your bone density and your overall health.
And not only, some of those, obviously the working out, but the vibration and the PEMF therapy also helps with many other things than just the bone density.
Yeah.
So it's really
an overall like wellness solution, not just bone density, definitely.
And it looks kind of fun standing at the vibration foot.
Yeah.
And you could even combine that with doing your red light therapy. That's another power therapy.
Yeah, definitely.
For a lot of things.
So good for so many different things. Exactly. Both PEMF therapy and red light therapy are also really good for reducing inflammation. And like I said, this time of our lives, that tends to creep up with that insulin resistance. So those are really helpful ways to just support your overall health. The other things that we want to be focusing on when it comes to the types of exercise that we're choosing, of course, are minimizing that long-term or chronic cortisol elevation, and then improving our overall metabolic health, of course. So the types of exercise that we want to start focusing on in perimenopause is resistance training, 3 to 4 days a week, and then HIIT training, or it's sometimes called burst training or sprint interval training, 1 to 2 days a week. And so those types of exercise are going to create a better metabolic picture for the changes in your hormones and metabolism that you're looking for at this age. We really do need to prioritize resistance training, specifically incorporating lifting heavy weight, getting to muscle fatigue or close to failure so that we can actually stimulate these adaptations to increase that lean muscle mass. That will help support better metabolism, increase our bone density, and trigger the hormone responses that support better metabolism.
So when you say heavy weights, that can sound a little intimidating.
Yes. So I do want to say that for women that are just starting out and haven't done any weightlifting before, don't start heavy. Start with light weights so that you can get comfortable with the movements first. You want to make sure that your body is moving in a way that's safe and that you're not going to injure yourself. So start with light weights, get comfortable.
Perfect the form.
Exactly. Work on your form, work on these movements first at a comfortable weight. And then once you're comfortable with those movements, then you can start to increase the amount of weight that you're lifting. And then the other side of that is you don't need to lift heavy with every single exercise. Like a lateral raise, for example, wouldn't be something that I would say lifting really heavy is a good idea for. So the compound movements like squats, deadlifts, I would say even shoulder presses, chest presses, those types of things you can lift a little bit heavier or challenge yourself. So you want to choose, ultimately what heavy means is a weight that is challenging enough that allows you to perform 6 to 8 reps with still being able to do another 2 if you really tried, right? Like if you dug really deep and really pushed yourself, you could perform another 2. So you want to choose a weight that allows you to do 6 to 8 reps. And if you really got in there, you could do 2 more. Okay. Now, high intensity interval training, which, like I said, is sometimes called burst training or sprint interval training, you can do it in a number of different ways. And this is good to incorporate 1 to 2 days a week. It supports your cardiovascular health. So if people are like, well, if long steady state cardio isn't super supportive, how am I going to support my cardiovascular health? HIIT training is a really great way to do that. HIIT training will actually stimulate the hormone responses that improve overall metabolic health. There are a few different ways you can do HIIT training. One is with weights. So if you choose like a 45-second interval of lifting with weights, and you're not going to choose your heaviest weights for this type of exercise. With the HIIT training, you're not going to choose that heavy weight. So you're going to choose a weight that allows you to lift for about 45 seconds. Then you have about 15 seconds of rest before your next set. So you want to make sure that you're choosing a weight that allows you to keep really great form and that your form isn't compromised. That style of workout you would maybe do for 30 minutes or so, 30 to 40 minutes. The other type of HIIT training or burst training would be with sprint intervals of some sort of activity like sprints, biking, rowing, jumping jacks, high knees, things like that. then you're going to perform that activity at 85% of your maximum intensity or above for an interval that's 30 seconds or less. So you're going to do a short burst of that activity, running, sprinting, biking, rowing, etc., for 30 seconds or less. And then you rest, allow your body to rest and recover fully.
Breathe again.
Breathe again, exactly. And then you do another round. So that doesn't have to be a super long workout. That you could just do a couple intervals, and you could do that even after a strength training session. And then closer to 50 and beyond, we also want to consider adding jump training into our exercise regimen. And
that sounds fun.
That is, yeah, right. The world's leading exercise physiologist, Dr. Stacy Sims, recommends jump training for 10 minutes, 3 days a week to support healthy bone mineral density. So this is another way. In addition to resistance training, specifically doing jump training helps you create the stress in your bones that is necessary for stimulating more bone mineral density. This is super important because women lose bone density in this stage of life. The literature I've seen says that many women lose 10% of bone density in the first 5 years after menopause.
Wow.
Some women lose up to 20% in the first 5 to 7 years post-menopause. And I've heard Dr. Sims say that they can lose up to a third of their bone mass after menopause if this issue isn't addressed. So that's why resistance training and jump training are really important additions and helpful additions to more than just your metabolism, but also your bone density after menopause. She even referenced a study where they took women that had osteopenia and they did 4 months of jump training and returned to normal bone density.
Oh, wow.
So essentially what we're looking for with jump training are explosive high-intensity movements that result in impact in the skeletal system. That impact is what creates the stress needed for your body to increase bone mineral density. So that's going to be things like squat jumps, box jumps, burpees, lunge jumps, jumping jacks, essentially things that will create an impact in your skeletal system. So I mentioned the rebounder earlier, and that still, it has been shown to be helpful for women in increasing bone density, but jumping in a way where you actually feel more impact in your skeletal system is what creates more significant bone mineral density changes.
Okay, so the types of workouts that everybody downstairs gets a little annoyed at you doing.
Right. Yes. All the jumping around.
Okay.
Yes. And then the last thing that I want to say about when we think about what types of exercise should I be doing, how can I support my body best with exercise at this stage of life in perimenopause, I really just also want to call out that we need to be listening to our bodies. So in our nutrition episode, we talked about how nutrition needs can change during different parts of the month. Well, during your cycle, your energy levels are different at different times of the month. And there are certain times of the month where it's not great to push yourself if you're not feeling great. So if you're feeling overly stressed and you're feeling like you're just not feeling up to a, super heavy lifting session, I think it is really important to listen to your body and heed that call. Specifically during the part of your cycle where progesterone is high, which is about the last 10 days of your cycle, called your luteal phase, it's most important to listen to your body and not engage in anything that feels overly stressful. Okay, so if you're feeling great, then go for it, definitely. But if you're not feeling great, then really think about, if there's another form of activity that would feel more supportive to you. So there is no shame in swapping out a heavy lifting session for some other form of movement, like a walk or doing gentle yoga or stretching instead.
When I wake up, and I generally do my workout in the morning, some mornings are a little bit more challenging to get the motivation to get that workout in, but I never regret the feeling after getting the workout in.
Yes, that's great.
It's such a stress reliever, and I just, it sets the tone of the day right.
I love that. And I love that you're paying attention to how you feel afterwards too, because that's the other thing that's really important to pay attention to throughout your cycle during this stage of life, because if we are pushing ourselves too hard and we don't feel good after a workout, that should be a major cue to really dial it back and consider a different form of exercise on the days that you're not feeling up to it. So we really want to be noticing if we feel destroyed after our workouts. That is definitely a cue to dial it back. It's best not to add too much extra stress during this part of your cycle in particular. And your body will start, because you end up undermining your progesterone production that your body is trying to do at this stage of your cycle by overstressing your body. So if you're not feeling up to it and you can choose a style of workout that feels more aligned with how you're feeling, that's awesome. You can also always start your workout and see how you feel as you get going. If you're noticing that you're totally gassed, you can always switch to a different form of exercise at that point too. I do like the idea of getting into the habit of getting into that exercise routine, because then it becomes a more consistent part of your routine. So, if you're feeling like you're not up to it and you can just choose something that feels more nourishing, like a yoga session or something like that, that's a really great way to still maintain that commitment to yourself while at the same time honoring how you're feeling and supporting your overall hormone production too. If you like data and you're kind of wondering about is there any way that I can understand how my body is responding and when I should be maybe dialing it back? If you feel like you aren't totally tuned into when you should be pushing hard and when you should be dialing it back, there are tools, there are tracking tools. So things like the Oura Ring. I've done the Oura Ring, but I have a ring right now called the Ringcon, the Whoop Band. There are different tools like that. The Garmin Vivo Smart is another one. These are tools that track your heart rate variability, or HRV, and are able to tell you how your body is recovering and responding to stress. So you can use the data in these tools to determine if your body is recovered enough to handle a stressful workout.
Something that I was concerned about, and I hear a lot of women be concerned about this, when you think of lifting heavy weights, you think of bulky, right?
Yeah.
And so before I first started lifting, I'm like, I don't really want the big, bulky muscles, beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. Nothing wrong with that. But that just wasn't something that I wanted to do.
Sure.
So what do you say to women that have that perception?
Right. Yeah, that is a common perception. That is something that I do hear a lot. So when it comes to building large visible muscle, it actually takes a very specific and very intense combination of training, nutrition, and often supplementation that most women aren't doing, right? You're more likely to bulk up from the sugar and stress than from lifting weights a few times a week. So resistance training actually helps you build lean muscle, boosts your metabolism, supports your bone density, improves your insulin sensitivity, and gives your body shape and strength. And that translates to helping you zip up your jeans more easily, feeling stronger, picking up your groceries, feeling more functional in the things that you're doing in everyday life.
And you're able to keep up in your everyday life.
Yes, exactly. And actually increasing your resting metabolism too. So in perimenopause, estrogen is declining, and with it, that muscle mass and bone density. So strength training actually helps you preserve and rebuild what your hormones are naturally taking away at this stage of life. So you're not going to bulk up. You will build more lean muscle tissue, but it's not going to be bulky in a way that people that are competing would be.
Right.
So ultimately, during perimenopause, we become more insulin resistant. Our cortisol is often higher. We tend to lose muscle mass and bone density if we aren't addressing them intentionally. So in order to support healthy muscle mass, increase bone density, and optimize our hormones for better metabolism and energy, resistance training, ideally 3 to 4 days a week. We both really love Sydney Cummings and Caroline Gervon for YouTube channels. So if you aren't familiar with lifting weights, you don't know what to do or how to do it, I think Sydney's a really great option because she explains things. Caroline is awesome too.
Oh, she's a beast.
She is a beast, but she doesn't talk during her workouts. Sydney actually talks you through those movements and tells you how to use good form and everything. So I think she actually would be a really great option
just starting out.
People that are just starting out. Exactly. HIIT training or burst training, 1 to 2 days per week. And both Sydney and Caroline also have HIIT training sessions in their YouTube channels. The other options for HIIT training, of course, is if you have a running track nearby and you want to do sprint intervals. If you have a recumbent bike at home, you could use your bike. You could do a rowing machine. If you have a space as big as a yoga mat, you could just do things like jumping jacks and high knees and things like that in a HIIT fashion, in a burst training fashion. For women nearing or over 50, jump training, 10 minutes 3 times a week is another great addition to really support more significant bone mineral density. And then last but not least, listen to your body. Start to develop that sense of intuition around what feels best in your body. Can you push yourself and still feel good afterwards? Or if you push yourself, are you feeling really gassed, or are you feeling destroyed after your workout?
I like feeling destroyed, but in the best way.
In a good way, right?
Then okay, you know what? Today was amazing.
Right. Yeah, and that's a good point because, you do want to feel like you just had a really great workout, but you don't want to then feel like completely exhausted for 2 days after that.
Right.
That's definitely a signal.
I like the soreness, but when I can't
Sit
go
down
to the bathroom without having to hold on to the walls or something, then I know, okay, maybe I overdid it.
Yeah, walking down the stairs.
Yeah.
And I just want to hit home how important this is. There was a review article in Climacteric, which is the journal of the International Menopause Society, in 2024. And in that article, they stated it is estimated that more than 47 million women worldwide enter the menopause transition annually. More than 70% will experience musculoskeletal symptoms, and 25% will be disabled by them through the transition from perimenopause to postmenopause. And the disabilities they were speaking to were specifically arthritis, loss of bone mass, loss of muscle mass, and joint pain. So I don't want to say that to scare people. I want to say that because I hope this is an indicator of how important it is to really begin moving our bodies in an intentional way in perimenopause, so we don't have to become part of those statistics, so that we can feel really great in our bodies, that we can have functionality as we age. I think that's really an important thing to know, that it's something that we have to make a priority at this time in our lives.
And not just when you're young and spry. If you want to continue your youthful and be able to keep up with your kids and grandkids and your nieces and nephews and whoever, you need to make movement a priority.
Definitely. And it's never too late.
Right?
It is never too late.
Did you see there's grandmas entering and winning powerlifting competitions. That's amazing.
And such a great inspiration to people that maybe are really intimidated by incorporating exercise if they're not familiar with it. Right? You can do it. It's not...
Start slow.
It's never too late. Right. Start slow, get comfortable with the movements, and then slowly start to increase the weight to challenge your body. When it comes to exercise, challenge is what we're looking for to create adaptation and change.
And you never know. You might be one of those powerlifting grandma champions.
That's right. You never know.
Never too late.
It's never too late. That's right. If you want to check out some of our favorite midlife movement tools, like weight sets, indoor bikes, walking pads, weighted vests, rebounders, or vibration plates, we rounded them up for you on our Amazon storefront. You can find the link in the show notes.
Next week, we're talking about how to meet yourself exactly where you are and ditch the I'll be happy when thinking that keeps so many women stuck. Thanks for hanging out with us on Midlife and Glowing.
If you loved this episode, it would mean the world to us if you'd follow the show, leave us a review, or share it with a friend who's glowing through midlife right alongside you.
Let's make it our best era yet. We'll see you next time.